Amid continuing protests by the opposition and the announcement of new income tax norms by the government, the demonetization debate in whether India is indeed ready for a cashless economy has split public and political opinion like little else. But somebody who has always been batting for the digitization of the economy and for India moving towards a cashless economy is the man who in fact was the architect of the Aadhaar scheme, something that has come to be absolutely germane towards India moving towards a genuine cashlessness. Joining us now exclusively is Nandan Nilekani. Nandan, thank you so much for your time. Let me start by asking you to take an overview as somebody who has always spoken about whether India should, is ready for a cashless economy. You've always batted for that. You've always batted for moving towards digitizing this space. But there is a very big difference of opinion between those who think that this could have been an incremental policy, an incremental process, a gradual process, and those who believe that it needed the kind of sharp jolt that the Prime Minister has brought with his demonetization scheme. Are you an incrementalist, or do you think that this shock to the system was necessary?
Well, I think the shock to the system, I think from my perspective, as someone who's been a champion and a votary of digital transactions, I think this will give a big boost to digitization. And, in the last 7 years, the infrastructure for digital financial services has been laid down. Aadhaar, UPI, the JAM infrastructure, and the USSD and micro ATMs and so on. And what I thought would take another 3 to 6 years to get rolled out, I now believe, because of the urgency of the matter, will happen in 3 to 6 months. To that extent, you're going to see a massive acceleration of the digitization of the Indian economy for financial services.
Nandan, that's a very big statement to make. What could have happened in 3 to 6 years may now happen in 3 to 6 months. Of course, the argument would be that there is no choice, but there are deep concerns, as you know, as to what happens to small industries, to the poor, to the rural economy. And, you are aware of those figures. There are groups that are arguing that 4 lakh jobs could be affected, that the informal sector has been grievously hit. Think of the coolie at the railway station. Think of your neighborhood chaatwala. Think of the woman who works as a domestic help in your house. Think of the daily wager who tills the land on the farm. Why should this scheme make her or his life better?
Well, I think there will definitely be some amount of short-term pain in the coming weeks. But you're going to see this acceleration which is going to benefit everybody. I'll give an example. India has about 1.5 million POS machines, which is the total POS machines installed for the last 30, 40 years. And I believe that just in the next 3 to 6 months, this will double or triple. You'll end up having 3 million to 4.5 million POS machines. Similarly, we have 130,000 micro ATMs where you can basically allow people to do cashless transactions in villages. I think that this particular thing will lead to 1 million or more micro ATMs coming. So you're going to see in many cases an order of magnitude increase in the touch points where transactions happen. And so I think while there will be pain for some time, I think you're going to see very high financial inclusion, because now anybody who does not have an Aadhaar can get an Aadhaar. Anybody with an Aadhaar can get an instant bank account. Anyone with a bank account can transact at a micro ATM. Anyone with a feature phone can transact using the USSD channel. And anybody with a smartphone can transact using the Unified Payment Interface smartphone app. So in some sense, there is a product for every segment, and that I think will bring everybody into the digital system.
Now, it's interesting to me that you use the word financial inclusion, because the criticism of the sudden jolt to the system is precisely the opposite of inclusion. You have the critics of the demonetization scheme, at least in the manner it's been rolled out, saying that actually it's hitting the poor, those who live outside of the urban city centers, those who do not have bank accounts. And you know these figures. The World Bank says only 53% of India is banked. There's a more recent report of PricewaterhouseCoopers that is more generous, but still says 233 million Indians are unbanked. People have pointed out that this is more unbanked Indians than the entire population, let's say, of Bangladesh. So, you know, when you're looking at such a large segment of India that continues to be without bank accounts, where even when the Jan Dhan bank accounts have been opened, many of them, as you know, over 40% remain zero balance till the recent surge, and we'll talk about that separately. When there is such a large population that is unbanked, how does this scheme work for them?
No, as I explained, one of the achievements of the last 7 years, thanks to both the UPA government and the current NDA government, has been the ubiquitous universalization of Aadhaar. And more than 1,000,000,008 people have Aadhaar number, 108 crore people have an Aadhaar number. And we think that almost more than 95% of adults have an Aadhaar number. Now, along with Aadhaar, we designed something called an eKYC, with which you can open an instant bank account. And now those people who have an Aadhaar but don't have a bank account can open it. And what this does, it gives the impetus to every player in the system, the banks, the new payment banks, everybody, to open bank accounts. We already have something like 357 million Aadhaar-linked bank accounts, and I expect that to cross to 400 million in the next couple of months. So I think bank account opening because of Aadhaar and eKYC will happen very quickly. And then, as I explained, the micro ATM is something which allows you to make a cashless payment in a village, where you go to the grocery store, use your Aadhaar number, authenticate, and make the payment, where the debit happens to your bank account and the credit happens to the merchant's bank account. So that handles really a big part of the challenge, especially for those who are in rural areas and don't have phones themselves. Now, if they have a feature phone, they can use the USSD app to transact. If they have a smartphone, they can use the new unified payment interface to transact. So in some sense, India is fortunate that it has an infrastructure for digital services that addresses every segment of the population. And what this shock to the system has done is dramatically accelerate the adoption of those technologies.
But the question remains, did the system need the shock, or would it have been better had everybody had more time, had there been more currency, still available as change in the system? You know the numbers, 86% of your currency has been wiped out in one swift blow pretty much. And I understand the whole argument about secrecy, but there are a number of people who are still hoarding their 100 rupee notes because they're scared of change running out in the system. There are 2000 rupee notes, Nandan, the new 2000 rupee notes were printed without enough change. So people are having a real problem paying small-time laborers daily wages in new currency. And I've met so many people myself who continue to be paid in old currency, then are expected to line up at banks, look for that change. Then they say by the time they reach the top of the line, the change is over, the cash is out from the ATMs or the banks.
No, I mean, certainly this is a shock to the system, and there is going to be pain, and clearly the pain will affect people, especially those who are outside the financial system. And I fully agree with that. But the point is that I see it from what does this mean for digital financial services. And my thesis is that the infrastructure which we have created over the last 7 years, which addresses all parts, all segments of the population, is now going to get rolled out in double quick time. And at the end of that journey, I think you'll find there'll be a dramatic increase in the proportion of transactions done digitally as with cash. Cash will continue to be required, but the proportion of digital transactions, especially for merchant payments, when you buy and sell at a merchant, I think that will become very high. And that, I think, is a very good thing, because that brings people into the formal economy. And then the digital footprints of their activity in the formal economy then provide the basis to give them credit. So I think the long journey of getting a few 100 million Indians into the formal economy is now getting accelerated.
And you think that's a good thing? You think the shock is a good thing?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm convinced that India's future will depend not on exports, because the deglobalization happening, it will have to be on the domestic economy. Manufacturing is becoming not going to be job creation, not a job creator, because of the combination of technology, automation, and the overcapacity in China. So India's growth is going to come from domestic services, which means formalization and getting more and more people into the formal economy, and of course urbanization. So in that sense, this plays to the growth strategy of the future for the country.
So what's interesting is, Nandan, your emphasis is really on digital footprints, on moving towards a cashless economy. But one big part of the demonetization announcement has been to tackle black money. And skeptics have said that this is actually not really going to target black money, that black money, for those who really have vast amounts of it, is converted into gold, property, Bitcoin, and, you know, Swiss bank accounts, whatever, right? So actually whom you're really targeting is either petty black money, or you're targeting people who do honestly pay their income tax and are asking today, and I ask you this is a philosophical question, and are asking today, why should the state control in what form and how much I can withdraw money that I have followed all the rules on, paid all the taxes on? What have I done wrong as a salaried professional that the state should have so much say in the form of which I either access or spend my money?
No, I mean, I think because of the short-term issues related to the paucity of new printed cash, I think you're seeing some of that. But that is something which will, you know, is transient, and in a few months, in a few weeks, will get sorted out. But I think the more important thing is that when the economy becomes formal, when everybody's financial transactions are digitized, when every tax paid is through the GSTN system, when every when every bill payment is through the bill payment system, India is going to go from being data poor to data rich. And that data rich will make it more and more difficult for people to do dishonest things or to be outside the system. So overall, as you become data rich, then you will reduce the amount of black money in the system.
But, you know, you are talking about the economy eventually benefiting from this. There is an alternative view, including by former Prime Minister Manmohan Singh, who actually believes that 2% of the GDP could be shaved off. There's a Deutsche Bank report that says that demonetization could slow GDP growth to 6.5%. Are you concerned that the GST was, in any case, in the short term, perhaps also going to have some sort of inflationary impact? Now you have a potential medium-term slowdown of the economy, as some have predicted, because of this demonetization. Does that worry you?
No, yeah, I think it does indicate that in the short term there will be a slowdown. But I think the overall sort of improvement that will come from digitization will make up for it later. Even the GST, the backbone of that is a very well-designed system called the GSTN, where every invoice paid by a company is registered with a GSTN, and automatically invoice matching is done to prevent people taking false credit for shipping something. So the tax evasion in the indirect taxes will dramatically come down once the GSTN is fully implemented. And the digital footprint of your filings with GSTN can be the basis for small and medium business to get credit from banks. So India will then have a far more deepening of credit, which is the heart of economic growth. So I think you will see economic growth bouncing back very smartly after a few months.
Okay, Nandan, I want to push you on what you said about financial inclusion, and I want you to break it down simply for somebody like me or somebody like my viewers who may not understand technical details, you know, in the way that you do. So suppose you go to the railway station and the coolie at the railway station says, you know, I haven't been earning too much in the last fortnight because people don't have change to pay me, and if they have their 50 rupee or 100 rupee notes, they're not paying it. So I'm thinking of actually packing up and going back to my village. Or you meet a daily wage laborer who says that this landlord of this khet has been paying me in old currency. Or you meet a woman who makes bindis, as I did, a small, you know, small cottage industry, literally tiny cottage industry, and gets paid a daily wage for it. What do you say to these people? They say we don't have bank accounts. They say even if we have bank accounts, when we line up to take our cash because we're still being paid in old currency, the bank doesn't have change for us. What do we say to these people?
No, I think, again, Barka, I think we all agree that in the short term there is dislocation happening and it's affecting a lot of people. So I think that's not being disputed by me, certainly. All I'm saying is that we now have the infrastructure in place where everybody has an Aadhaar number. Opening a bank account with an Aadhaar number with a small handheld device takes 3 to 4 minutes. If you look at the recent Airtel Payments Bank, they opened 10,000 bank accounts in 2 days because they used eKYC. If you look at Reliance Jio, which has used eKYC, they have opened millions of SIM card connections with eKYC. So everybody is using eKYC, which will which is an electronic instant bank account opening. So all these new things are there to rapidly onboard people into the formal economy, and these have been around for some time, but this particular window has created an opportunity for accelerating the adoption of these technologies, which will lead to great long-term benefit for people as they all become part of the formal economy.
Is there any part of the criticism that you do agree with? Because you're clearly a passionate supporter of the jolt that was needed to the system. But you've had some fine economists from Amartya Sen to Kaushik Basu saying this was not the way. You've had the political opposition. You've had a Manmohan Singh questioning what will happen to the economy. Is there any? And you've had people saying, why is the RBI governor silent? He's finally said a few things to PTI. Is there any part of the criticism that does concern you when you look at a aim of a cashless economy and the way that this has been rolled out? Are you discomforted by anything you've seen in the last fortnight or so?
No, I think obviously it has caused some short-term dislocation, and that could carry on for some more time.
No, but was that inevitable? Nandan, was that inevitable, or is it the way it's been done?
Well, I think, I don't know. I was not party to the decision, nor was I, involved in any way. I'm purely seeing it as someone who has spent a long time building the infrastructure for digital financial services. And I see this situation, which, I was not party to and happened anyway, as a way to accelerate people coming into the financial system, getting bank accounts, getting the ability to do cashless transactions through a micro ATM or through a feature phone or a smartphone. And I think that is going to be hugely beneficial for them, because once they become part of the formal economy and create their digital footprints, then they can leverage those footprints to access credit or get better jobs. So I think it has tremendous value in that sense, and that's what I'm really focused on.
Nandan, at a time when you were in fact in government running the or rolling out the Aadhaar scheme, you had the UPI, right? You had UPI, which I want to bring to
UPI. No, sorry. UPI was built in the last 2 years by the National Payment Corporation of India, where I am a honorary advisor. So UPI is the last 2 year thing.
Okay, I stand corrected on that, but you've been associated with UPI, and my question was actually going to be about the fact that when I spoke about the UPI to the SBI, State Bank of India chairperson Arundhati Bhattacharya, she said, the UPI had a lot of lacunae. It meant 14 stops for us. The State Bank of India was the last, in fact, to join it. There have been comparisons that have been drawn between UPI and Paytm, and not a fair comparison, because UPI is only for bank transactions and Paytm is for banking and everything else. But why do you think UPI has not been able to take off in the way that it did, where even the SBI chairperson is saying, no, this is not really working that well for us?
Well, I think UPI is a very good product. It's designed in a very secure manner. It's probably the most advanced interoperable mobile-to-mobile payment system in the world. All over the world, people have been appreciating the design of what has been done here. UPI was just launched 2 months back. It's just baby steps. But now I think with the push that is going to come, I'm quite confident that UPI will take off, and we will have millions of users who will use UPI, because it's really a very, very simple interoperable system which has very advanced features. And that is for those who have smartphones. But that's only 200, 300 million people, which is why the NPCI has developed something on the USSD channel. And we're very fortunate that this week the chairman of the TRAI reduced the transaction costs on USSD from 1 rupee 50 paisa to 50 paisa and allowed all banking transactions. So now that channel will be used by another 300 million people who don't have smartphones but have feature phones. And then for people who have neither a smartphone or a feature phone, they can go to an Aadhaar enabled micro ATM and make a cashless payment just using their finger or their eye. So you really have a complete infrastructure that applies to every segment of society, which is why I'm confident that you will see digital progress in the next 3 to 6 months on financial services, which without this event would have taken 3 to 6 years.
You've had the opposition parties targeting Paytm in part because it is partly owned by Alibaba, a Chinese company. Do you think there's any merit to those concerns? Because I hear this again and again on television programs every night that we actually have the Chinese making a backdoor entry through this route, and they're now going to have a sizable control over how our money is managed.
Well, actually, if you look at the solutions that we are proposing, they all use public infrastructure. USSD is a public infrastructure provided by the mobile companies, regulated by the TRAI.
Yes.
The micro ATM is a public infrastructure that any bank can operate. It's completely interoperable.
Yes.
UPI is an application developed by NPCI, which is a non-profit company collectively owned by the banks, regulated by the Reserve Bank of India under the Payment and Settlement Act 2007. So everyone, at least the infrastructure that I am talking about, is open, public, interoperable, and operated under complete supervision by the regulator and the government. So I have no doubt about the infrastructure that we have created for making this transition to digital payments.
No, I know, but it has also been a bonanza moment for private companies like MobiWik or Paytm or so on, and then you do have opposition raising questions about their ownership. Do you believe that's a valid concern, or do you believe that's a non-concern at this point?
Well, I think I don't want to get into a debate about the wallets, but as I keep saying, and I don't seem to be conveying it well, the infrastructure that we are espousing is interoperable.
Yes.
Whereas wallets tend to be, closed loop systems. It's interoperable. It's operated largely by NPCI. NPCI is the National Payment Corporation of India. It's a Section 25 company which was set up by 10 banks and collectively now owned by some 45 banks. The Reserve Bank of India has a nominee on the board. It has several independent directors. It is regulated under the Payment and Settlement Act 2007. So really it's a well-established infrastructure designed for public purpose, and Aadhaar is completely built by the government. So the entire system that I am describing is either built by the government or built by a non-profit company under the regulations of government.
Yeah, got that. When you talk about a cashless economy, one of the huge parts of our country that remains cash-driven is in fact our politics. And as somebody who only briefly tiptoed into that area to hastily retreat from it, Nandan, would you agree as a citizen that this is one area that really does need to go cashless, and that there would be a lot more legitimacy to the black money debate if every single major party was willing to in fact disclose donations and accept them by check or electronically or whatever the mode of payment needs to be?
Well, I think this shock to the system will extend to the political system also.
That's interesting. You're saying it might force them to actually go cashless as well.
Well, I think basically you're cutting down the avenues for black money, because as you go more digital, as you make your tax payments digital, as you make your day-to-day payments digital, as you make your land record. For example, many states now are putting the Aadhaar number in the land records to eliminate Benami transactions. So, and you're also tightening the system of, bad behavior. See, I think the thing is like this: if you have to make it convenient to be honest, and inconvenient to be dishonest, or you need to make sure that somebody who is dishonest feels that there is going to be a penalty. And I can assure you that in a very few years, everybody will come into the mainstream and do things right.
Nandan, there is a psychological mindset that Indians have. You definitely dealt with it during Aadhaar, which is this fear of, whether online online money payments is safe, whether it's a privacy debate, whether your money is safe, and this continues to be something that Indians continue to worry about. So on the safety dimension, as we move towards maybe a cashless economy, what would you say about that?
Well, I think safety of online transactions is extremely important. We have seen across the world what happens when data is not secure. We have seen WikiLeaks, we have seen the Snowden papers, we have seen the hack on Yahoo, we have seen the debit card issue in India, we have seen the distributed DOS attack on internet about a month back. So yes, security is very important, and for many state actors, security, cyber attacks is a way of, is a legitimate form of warfare. But I think certainly the systems that I've been involved with is really the Aadhaar system and UPI. A lot of attention has gone into security, into encryption, into designing for minimalism, into creating a lot of I don't want to get into the technical aspects, but I think it's a well-designed, robust system for security, and that's something which we are all proud of.
In the end, I must ask you, is it a moment of personal vindication for you? Aadhaar was, in a sense, your baby. The government did decide to continue it. Aadhaar is key to any cashless economy actually working and growing roots. Do you feel that this is a bipartisan moment, or do you believe that Mr. Modi was able to do what Dr. Manmohan Singh was not able to do with it? Would you at this point congratulate the Prime Minister? Do you feel ownership of what's happening? Share a little bit of what this moment means to you personally.
Well, I think first of all, I think the credit for creating the Aadhaar system and letting me do it goes to the UPA government, Dr. Manmohan Singh, Mrs. Sonia Gandhi, Mr. Rahul Gandhi, and Mr. Pranab Mukherjee, who was one of my biggest supporters. So I think they gave tremendous support, and of course, Mr. Chidambaram, when he was finance minister too. So they gave tremendous support, and we were able to roll it out to 600 million people by the time I stepped down in March 2009. And I'm very grateful, eternally grateful to them for giving me that support. At the same time, I'm grateful to Prime Minister Modi, because he has taken what was built and taken it forward and applied it to so many new schemes. It's the basis for direct cash transfer, which we had designed and rolled out about half for LPG before it was stopped. But this government took it forward, and they, by their own admission, they have saved 36,000 crores just on direct benefit transfer on a project where the entire investment was about 8,000 crores. So here is a project where you got a return on investment already, which is 3 to 4 times what you spent. It was done below budget, it was done ahead of time, and it has survived 2 governments who have both supported it very well.
Yes.
So yes, I do feel happy that all that effort has finally resulted in something which will have a transformational effect on the country.
And you believe, unlike the Congress, to whom you partly give the credit for Aadhaar, but is not a supporter of the demonetization, that Mr. Modi has indeed gambled, but he's gambled with something that will transform India in a positive way.
I mean, I think a lot will depend on the next 3 months. But yes, and they're doing all the right things from the digitization point of view.
Yeah.
But if they accelerate the digitization and do all the things I talked about,
yes,
rolling out POS machines, rolling out UPI, rolling out USSD, rolling out, yes, micro ATMs, enrolling people into Aadhaar with eKYC, yes, the long term will be a very good development.
Nandan Nilekani, pleasure to have you talking on the program, the architect of Aadhaar. Definitely a moment of personal vindication for you, and an interesting sort of apportioning of credit 50-50 to both Manmohan Singh and Sonia Gandhi and Narendra Modi. A moment of bipartisanship that is rare on Indian television these days. Pleasure talking to you, Nandan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Barka. Thank you so much.